Greetings, Quester. The Meddlesome Meeples present Tome Talk with Richard and Matt.
So thank you for joining us for this episode of Tome Talk. This week, Richard's going to present a book to us by Robert Reed.
Yes, this book is called Marrow, and this is my very kind of dog-eared copy of it. And that's part of the reason why I want to talk about this. It's one that I read it when I was quite young. I was old enough to kind of understand it. Was kind of like 17, 18, that kind of age. But it really blew my mind. And I had been reading quite a bit of sci-fi at the time, but in a way this kind of ruined the rest of it for me, because the scope in this book is so massive that other books I was interested in afterwards, it seemed a little bit too narrow, really. Like they were just kind of dealing with little things that it seemed, even if it was in the future, it seemed basically like it was just the same world as we're living in, just with a few extra gadgets and things, and maybe we live on some different planets or something like that. Because this book was set so far in the future and in such a strange society compared to what we're used to. What it's actually about is something called the Great Ship, and that's something that I did want to talk about when we were doing our what ships would you like to live on.
Right, yeah.
If we had got onto what ships from books we would like to live on, this definitely would have been my number one choice. Now,
so look out for a Tiny Meeples big talk special about sci-fi ships in books.
Yes, which is going to happen at some point. So, what the Great Ship is a ship that was actually found by humans rather than having been built. Now, if we just think about I'm just going to read a little bit of the beginning of Marrow, just while it's just describing the ship being found, but it's being described from the ship's point of view. It's talking about how it's noticed some little creatures coming towards it in their ships. They've come from a yellow sun, which we understand as being our sun, and tries to talk to them, but it's got no voice. And they explore the interior of it, find it completely empty, and then some more turn up and they start to colonize it. And just this little passage here where it says like how they realise how old it is. It says, "My scars and my trajectory implied my age. No galaxies lay behind me, not even a dark half-born galaxy of consequence. That kind of emptiness has few obstacles. Comets are rare, suns are rarer, and even simple dusts are scarce. Yet my leading face was cratered and cracked, implying to the curious animals that I had come a terrific way, and that I was old as their home world." So that's just, it remains mysterious as you go through this, but the ship itself is actually 20 Earth masses, so that's how big it is. And I just pictured that as being 20 times the size of Earth, basically, because I know mass is a slightly different thing. But what the first humans that colonise it do is they change one of the seas that are on it, because it's kind of like shells. And it says it's got seas of ammonia and methane and things like that. And what the humans do is take one of the water seas and put some salt in it and make the temperature just right for themselves. Basically make it into a sea, and then they build a nice coastal city next to it. So they've got this city on a ship, and that's the first humans that colonise it. But where we kind of pick up the story in the book is where humans have claimed this ship as their own. They have several captains for it. You need loads for a ship that big.
Because of the size of it.
Yeah. And they have a master captain who is like the leader of the whole thing. And basically humans have claimed salvage rights on it, but other aliens can come and stay there. They have to pay a lot. And basically they are taking the ship on they're circumnavigating the galaxy, because they thought they might as well take it somewhere. And basically other civilizations or people from it can just pay for the privilege of riding on it, and they can get a little section of the ship and just make it into what their homeworld's like. There are 3 massive fuel tanks in it, which are basically seas of hydrogen, which it uses for fusion burn every now and then.
That sounds like a massive health and safety issue.
Yeah, basically it is.
You can just see somebody with a high-vis jacket and a clipboard going past going, hang on a minute here.
Yeah. And there is quite a lot of bureaucracy going on in it, but in a very grandiose way, because obviously they call it the Grand Hydrogen Sea, and like the main character Washing in it, when they say that, just thinks a fuel tank is a fuel tank. So, and basically what happens in the book, I don't want to give away spoilers, the word marrow is very kind of significant to one of the main points in the book and the main things that they find out. But one of the main things that happen is that some of the humans get stranded within the ship, and they basically have to spend thousands of years recreating society, and like over generations kind of rebuilding technology, and like to be able to get themselves back to the main ship itself. And I thought that was an amazing concept, particularly since these people, their genetics are so advanced that they live forever. So you've got people that are existing with their great grandchildren, and they are still young and
still having to babysit.
It's that's one of the most amazing concepts of this. Despite the size of the ship, it's like the type of people there are. They all have amazing healing abilities as well, just because they've started unlocking their own genetics and things like that. So that is Marrow. And there was a follow-up book also about the great ship called The Well of Stars, which is also a brilliant book, but very, very different. So that's why I just thought I'd mention this, because Marrow is about people being stranded within the ship itself, whereas The Well of Stars is where an organism tries to take the ship from them. So it's a very different
type. Is that the same ship that's pictured on the front? Because that gives you an idea of scale, because you can see the planet there.
I've got a planet here in front of the ship, and it's not covering it. So that is basically how big it is. Now, when they're going around the galaxy,
actually looks very much like a Death Star in that picture.
It is, yeah. But the Death Star's the size of a small moon, whereas that's like bigger than a planet. So, it's a very kind of detailed universe that is created there, and there have also been short stories about the great ship as well. That's one of the reasons I really wanted to recommend Marrow today, and I want to do that quite early in our Tome Talks, just because that was such an important book to me personally, and also there's been so much kind of come from it, but stuff that people might not know unless they're familiar with sci-fi short stories. I got a collection of short stories by Robert Reed just called The Great Ship. At first I thought it might be the third book. I've been kind of waiting for there to be a third one, because he expected it to be a trilogy, really. And he has written more about it, but not something that I would really class as like the third one. It
just
seems
little
to be
novella type stories.
So there was the collection of short stories, and then there's this other one called Memory of Sky, which is called A Great Ship Trilogy. So I thought, oh great, that's part of the Great Ship Trilogy. But no, it is itself a trilogy. And I've been saving that one. So I've read a lot of the short stories, but I've not read the Great Ship, that one yet, the Memory of Sky. So I'm going to see how that is. But since then I have managed to read other sci-fi books. There's another one by him, completely different, which I'll talk on a later Tome Talk, called Sister Alice, which is a completely different type of story, but still the main idea seems to be immortal humans, basically. And I always think it's such an interesting idea, because that's basically what we're going for, like with advancements in medicine and things like that. If you think about what the end result would be, I mean, if they could conquer aging and enhance the healing processes of humans, just think what a completely different type of society that would be.
Yeah, and that's always interesting to explore through stories, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So
I was wondering though, because I haven't read any of his books, but one of the things I do know about Robert Reed is his writing at times has been called sci-fantasy as opposed to sci-fi, because there's a lot of pseudoscience, and a lot of the scientific angles of what he's wrote has been challenged.
Yes.
Which I think, if I'm reading a sci-fi book, I don't necessarily expect the science to make sense. I was just wondering what your experience of reading.
Well, what I found is that when I read it at first, there was a lot of concepts in there that I hadn't really thought of before. But that was probably because I was quite young when I read it. But what he seems to have done is take concepts and then kind of take them to their fullest degree,
Right.
really. And that might not be all that wise sometimes, because like there's probably other reasons why humans can't or couldn't be as immortal as they are in this. I mean, the healing is so flipping fast in Marrow. I mean, in some of the others, it's not quite like that, but people can like take a severe laser hit or lose a limb or something like that, and things grow back really quick. Like thermodynamically, that wouldn't really be very possible. But
there is, I think, with any kind of science fiction story, fantasy, anything like that, you have to have a certain suspension of disbelief to be able to really enjoy the material.
Yeah, but it has to be a certain amount. You know, I can understand like if it's so bad that it seems like someone doesn't know all that much science, then that would be very annoying. What a lot of the time you get is, well, I've heard it said that in good sci-fi you just need to believe one impossible thing, and then you can just enjoy the rest of the story. And really, as long as a lot of the concepts are kind of based generally in science, then it's kind of okay. I mean, this is a lot crazier than most science fiction, and I can understand why it would be called like sci-fantasy. Sister Alice is far worse for that, really, because a lot of that is based in dark matter, and obviously you can just make up whatever you want about that.
Well, that's the thing there. I mean, I think if I was writing a sci-fi book, I would just use different concepts and just make up what I wanted to make up.
Yeah,
and just take it from there, because you don't have to always make it make sense. I think there was in one of in which series of Star Trek was it? Was it in the original series? Someone wrote to Gene Roddenberry and asked a question about how one of the stabilizers works or something like that. And his response was, "It works fine, thank you."
Right, yeah, that's the kind of thing. Yeah, I have been enjoying watching the original series of Star Trek, but one of the ways that I enjoy it now is just to not try and make it make sense, because like 1 minute they can go at a certain speed in the ship, and then the next 2 episodes they get kicked out of the entire galaxy, which doesn't happen on any other Star Trek, really. And
is that sort of level of...
No, this is a lot more grounded, I think, anyway. But it's just that it is taken to such an extreme degree. It's not like anything can happen at all. It is kind of grounded in scientific ideas, but I can imagine if somebody was very very into a particular field of research, then they might think, oh, that's not quite right. But to me, and I think to most readers, the science would... You are kind of satisfied with the scientific concepts, or I always have been anyway, reading them, but then I have kind of also realised there'd be so many roadblocks towards this along the way that would be very difficult. But like I say, you have to believe one impossible thing, but I just think in order of having a grand concept, I mean, then I haven't really found many books that have the kind of ambition that these do, and that's kind of the main thing for me about it. So I would recommend, if you want to get your mind boggled, then to have a go at Marrow. I had to actually stop reading it for a little bit sometimes, because the idea of so many centuries was it just kind of, it makes you feel weird after a while. And there's a bit where I think the Master Captain makes an amnesty because they want to find a certain person, but this person's a fugitive, so she declares a 100-year amnesty, and loads of people come in, confess crimes and stuff like that, and this guy waits until the last 20 seconds of the 100 years to like saunter in and like turn himself in, and it's just weird things like that. It's just so outside our normal human experience.
Yeah.
And it's just strange to get
But
that
that's
in a
why
sci-fi.
that's why we turn to sci-fi, though, isn't it?
It is,
Because,
yeah.
you know, otherwise we'd be reading things set in normal everyday times.
Yes.
You know, non-fiction.
Yeah, that's
Twilight, and nobody wants that.
it. You keep mentioning that.
I really dislike Twilight.
Did it disappoint you when you were reading your teen fiction for girls?
No, what it was I was at somebody's house and they had it on.
Oh,
and
right, the film.
I ended up having to sit through it.
Yeah, that would be pretty annoying. Right,
Yeah.
I understand that now. So, yeah.
It was traumatic.
This explains a lot about Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. That was this week's Tome Talk. So next week, Matt will have a book to talk about.
Richard approves. What about you? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.